Thank you for sticking around and for staying. There will be opportunities for questions throughout this session, so feel free to put up your hand or give a holler. I've got a microphone, and Heather McKercher over here has graciously agreed to carry a microphone. We just ask that you hold on to your question until you have a microphone so that everybody can hear, and so that those who are watching at home, either now or in future, will be able to hear as well. I am reassured by Ted's sermon today, because as a teacher, I often say when I ask an open-ended question that there are no wrong answers, and I feel like as long as we are here and serving God in our community of faith, that there is no wrong answer in this process, and I will be thrilled as long as our steps are in sync, we're heading in the same direction, and that our congregation does not end up going in multiple directions. It's hard to pull a big stone when you're pulling against an equal number of people. So we have some informative speakers for you today, and we are opening our initial voting process today as well. I appreciate the contributions of who I've been calling the Faith Forward 2.0 committee, which consists of Darlene Laferriere, Heather McKercher, Jerry Foster, Glenn Brophy, Natalia Brown, and I'm especially grateful to Ted Harrison and Lisa Blay, who have prepared the materials for this meeting and for this process. Hopefully, by now, you have quite a bit of information about our building and the challenges we're facing. This information may have come from our April 13th presentation by the building committee on the structure, the drains, the bricks, and the multiple options. It could have come from our May 4th meeting of the congregation, Hive Mind, about all of the options that the Faith Forward brochure has laid out that came from it. Finally, there is a handout that Ted and maybe a couple of others are going to circulate at this point that summarize all of that information. So it summarizes what we've come up with as the 5 options for our voting process. It's double-sided, it's on one sheet, so take a peek as you receive it. It will hopefully guide some of the conversation and perhaps even some questions today. After that May 4th meeting and reading the brochure, you were encouraged and are encouraged to talk far and wide, to spend some time prayerfully discerning God's direction for our situation. These series of presentations, which will be brief, it's kind of the theme of this morning, is the next step in informing the congregation prior to what I would call the initial vote. At the end of the initial vote, we are hoping, the Faith Forward 2.0 committee and the board are hoping to narrow down the options to the ones most popular amongst the community and put more effort into hammering out the details around 1 or 2 of the 5 options. The options that are outlined on the handout that are coming around, I said they're 5. Repair only, so that would consist of only repairing the current building. Option 2 is Tier 1 renovation, so that would mean repairing the building and renovating potentially to a lower cost. I think the cost is listed on the sheet, so between $1.5 to $2.5 million total. Tier 2 renovation would be repairing the building and then doing a little more, quite a bit more extensive renovation. So the cost of that option would be maybe $5 million, but it really is a very general estimate. It depends on what we together decide to accomplish. The next option is Share There, which we have decided as an option to give up this building to attempt to partner with another church at their location. So there is more information about the share there option on this paper. And then finally, the fifth option would be to move elsewhere, and that's a very open option, but that would be option number 5. The initial voting window will open today. There are ballots available to you today, and it will be open for 3 Sundays. So it will be open today. We're not worshiping here, but it will be open through to next Sunday. We're not worshiping here next Sunday, but it still will be open, although the church will be closed. And then through next week to November, I believe that brings us to November 30th. So the voting is open through to the end of November. The ballot boxes after today will be housed in Peggy's office, in the church office. If you're not prepared to vote today, you may vote anytime in the next 2 weeks. You may get your ballots either from Ted and Heather at the back of the church after this meeting, or from the church office throughout the next 2 weeks. If you are not able to come and pick up ballots in person, there is an electronic voting option. Please email Peggy and the main office. She will send you a link and will take your name down as having received your ballots. Please only vote once through that process, or through the in-person ballot process. We'll cross your name off the list if you've received your ballots. The initial vote will be a weighted vote. So you'll receive 5 ballots. You're welcome to divide your vote. If you feel very strongly about one option, obviously your 5 ballots will go in one box. If you're feeling fairly equally weighted, you have 5 ballots, there are 5 boxes, you're welcome to put 1 ballot in each box, or however you wish, 3 and 2, 2 and 2, 2 and 1, whatever. So the question was that there was some confusion because the confusion was that there's one person assuming we get 1 ballot, but no, each individual person gets 5 ballots. That's how we make it a weighted vote, and how we are able to consider some people who may find that there are 2 options that they're willing to consider. It's a way of really making it the process a little black and white, and getting as much support as possible into the boxes that we're considering. Does that make sense? Sorry. You're welcome. So the boxes will look like this. They'll be at the back of the church. You're welcome to vote on your way out if you have made up your mind and know which direction you're going in. You're welcome to hang on to your ballots until you have made up your mind. Any other questions about the process itself? Fantastic. We do have some speakers today. I'm sure that they're happy to answer questions at the end of their brief presentations, but those questions should be specific to those speakers, and there will be an opportunity for general questions, comments at the very end. I would like to start with Marcel McDonald. Thank you.
Morning. I don't know how much of a presentation this is going to be. She said, tell them your idea and dream big, right? Is that what you said? So when we did the meeting in May, the first thing that came to my mind was Ion's Garden, and how we used to use it for the Sunday school. We used to use it for lots of things, and recently it's kind of been inaccessible to us. And I'm looking across the street at the Thompson building there, and they have this beautiful, like, glassed-in walk-in area with the elevator that looks over everything. And I thought, wouldn't that be amazing if Ion's Garden, the whole section, the whole alleyway, was like a giant glass atrium with the elevator, because we're going to need an elevator for 3 floors if we do a full renovation, can be basically there. So you can walk in through where the driveway is, would be just an entranceway with Ion's Garden. It would be accessible to anybody who wanted to use it. The Sunday school, we could have, a community garden there, whatever, and then you could have an elevator that can then, because it's attached to the back part of the building, access all 3 floors of the church. So including the ratty old building up there, which the fire exit has been, blocked off, and we can't have any. That used to be the youth group room up on the 3rd floor, which we can't use anymore. So that would all be accessible. So that whole thing would be renovated. And then I was like, oh, well, what if, because we have to redo these wings, what if those were enclosed and that elevator went up? And that isn't just a roof and a ceiling anymore. It's an enclosed area with a hallway that walks so people can access the balcony from the elevator. And now you have a hallway that overlooks the top of the sanctuary, which then would give us access to these windows, which are beautiful, and you could overlook, and then we can start putting lighting in and everything. And we use so much, we use this for so many different things. So we've been getting lots of musicians in, we've been getting lots of plays, which have generated lots of revenue for us. And I look at these, this was supposed to be a temporary stage, and wouldn't it be nice if instead of the people, used to be Don Rideout, and now it's recently been me crawling underneath the stage and unscrewing everything and trying to pull everything up, and that, you could have something hidden underneath the stage where you could pull those risers out really nicely because they're all packed away underneath the stage. This podium and that podium can be pushed to the side, and then you open up this whole area, you put in temporary risers for the choir, and then you get rid of all this stuff, and this whole area then becomes open. And when you want the joy band, we have risers instead of pews. You have chairs which can be removed. The joy band can then come and you pull out these risers, and they use the whole section. When you have a play, this whole area is now open. There's no need to unscrew piles of stuff. This modesty rail can be on wheels and easily just be rolled away. So there's lots of things to make this, and this part of the renovation would be fairly inexpensive compared to my atrium idea, obviously. But so there's like two totally extremes. So in my mind, I would love to just basically gut everything, save all the most beautiful things we have, like all this wood, the stained glass, everything like that, fix it so it's gonna last another 100 and whatever years, and then rebuild it, renovate it, put all the nice stuff back in a more functional way. That's my presentation. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Marcel? Sandy? Wait for a mic, please.
I'm assuming this is Tier 2 reno on the option sheet.
Yeah, this would be the big reno. Because the thing is, if we don't want to do all this work and then, 5, 10, 15, even 20 years down the road, find out that, well, we have to tear a whole bunch of stuff out because, something with the foundation or something with something else. So we just do it the first time.
Any other questions? Thank you, Marcel. And next I'll call, one more question at the back. So I would, the difference between Tier 1 reno and Tier 2 reno would be, in my mind, the cost and the amount that would be renovated. No, he was talking about some ideas and thoughts about what we could do in general. Yeah. Okay, and Natalia Brown?
Hi, everyone. So I wrote down what I wanted to say because Amanda asked me to talk about my experiences at 2 churches in Texas that had new builds, and also what I might imagine it would mean for us financially if we were to embark on a new build. As secretary on the Finance and Stewardship Committee, I've been privy to our financial situation over the past few years, so I will speak to that at the end. Before I moved to North Bay, I lived in Texas for 8 years. The first 2 years I was in Houston, and I attended the Fountain of Life Christian Center on the west side of town. When I arrived, it wasn't so much a center, it was a group of faith-filled people having services in a gym at a middle school. So every week, the chairs, the microphones, the piano, all the equipment had to be packed up and then stored in garages and sheds of the different members. But we knew that it was temporary because by the time I had joined, they had already purchased land and they were in the process of building the new church. So we had all these conversations about the new space, and there was a lot of excitement about what it would mean for us in terms of our long-term goals and our mission. And so there's a lot of anticipation. And I remember when we cut the ribbon on the new building, and we had the grand opening, and we started actually having services in the new space. Everything was purpose-built, from the dedicated Sunday school room to the choir rehearsal space to the kitchen and the lounge. There was adequate parking, ramps for easier access. There was a ridiculous amount of storage. Well, and as I say, everything is bigger in Texas. And the new space was no exception. I left after 2 years to go to Austin, but I learned that over the years, and I have visited very often, I learned that they entered into a lease agreement with a Seventh-day Adventist church that had services on to Saturdays, and that they also leased to another church that had services on the Sunday evenings. So that provided them with a lot of income to help to pay the mortgage. And that mortgage, they amortized over the maximum number of years. I know they went through some lean years. There was a bit of a disagreement between church leadership about where things should go, and people left. And so the shrinking membership meant that there was a larger burden on the remaining members. So they had to sell some of the adjoining land that they bought, and they had less choice about who their neighbors were and so on. But 2 decades later, they're still there, and the congregation has started to grow again. So I would say that for them and their circumstances, that was the right decision for them. When I moved to Austin to further my studies, I started attending Praise Tabernacle, and they had just moved into their new building. So I wasn't part of that, the process going in. And once again, everything is bigger in Texas. It was an extreme space. Everything was just huge. But my time there was short-lived, and the reason had a lot to do with the stress and the anxiety the congregation was experiencing due to the burden of their financial obligations. I've told Ted the longer story, so if you want to hear about it, you can come find me downstairs. Not that I think that this would happen to us, but I left that church because its leadership and the church itself had lost sight of the mission because they became overwhelmed by their finances. The whole atmosphere, it changed whenever we had a mortgage payment due. You could cut the tension with a knife. So I'll just finish with our particular situation. So as some of you may know, we have been running modest deficits since 2019. And apart from last year when we had a sizable deficit of about $78,000, we have been able to absorb these deficits due to our financial reserves that we've built up over the years, thanks to the generosity of members past and present. If we were going to embark on a new build, we would need to borrow significantly. We might be able to fundraise and access some grants and loans at concessional rates through the United Church of Canada, but a significant portion, I would say the lion's share, would have to be financed through a bank or a trust and mortgage loan company at market interest rates. We would have to accommodate those mortgage payments into an already stretched budget. So, a new build comes with a lot of benefits and opportunities. As I mentioned, the storage, the parking, all these things that you could, the purpose-built things that you could have. But it would come with some challenges. And we're not the first congregation to have to face these kinds of decisions. But whatever we decide to do, I hope that we never lose sight of our mission.
Thank you, Natalia. Any questions for her? Thanks. And next I'll call upon Jerry Foster.
The reason Amanda included me is because they wanted to bring the average age up of the presenters. Yes, I am happy to make some comments about a vision, and I should say, first of all, these are my personal ideas or concepts, and if any of these ideas happen to fit in with something of interest to you or something you can use to express your wishes for the future, then that is good. I must say to you right at the beginning that I normally look at big picture things, and I know we got an issue here, but maybe we should look beyond that. Over the years, I've been involved in a lot of things that resulted in mergers and acquisitions and consolidation and all that stuff. Not any of it is much fun, quite frankly. But if there's one thing I could say, when you have a problem, also, it can be an opportunity. So let's look for the opportunities of how Trinity can continue to grow and prosper. I got quite involved here with Faith Forward a year or so ago, because the one thing we didn't know, how long could we expect this church to survive? And that was the entire objective for me. And we did involve structural engineers, which you have to do. And I feel quite comfortable now that the information we got from those people and the resulting estimates for construction, we can bring this facility back to acceptable standards and meeting building codes, because that was a key issue. The problem is it's going to cost money, and we estimate that it is in the magnitude of $1 million. Now that's a lot of money for this congregation. So I guess what I would be looking for is how that we can raise that money and then do the construction. So if you do some calculations on your own, you can say, okay, we either need 1 million people that give $1, or we need 100 people giving 10,000, or we need 40 people giving 25,000. It's in that magnitude. But I am very reluctant to put a huge debt on this congregation and not knowing how we're going to pay for it. As we deliberate over how we might pay for things, I guess it led me to thinking about something else, and that is, Amanda mentioned partnering. I can warm up to that, to partnering. Whatever partner we select better have a better building than we have. You know, so there's a lot of assessment to do when we take that avenue. The other thing that will happen is that if we partner with another church, and that's probably the obvious way to do this, then there will be sacrifices we as a congregation will have to make in terms of what can we do, what can we continue to do, what will we not be able to do, or how do we do things differently. So there is some critical decisions that will have to be made in that area. The other thing I was thinking about as I was putting these notes together was that what are we not willing to give up? And to me, the top of that list is our leadership here at Trinity. The reason this church is successful, and I believe it is because of our leadership. And yes, that starts with the weekly TED Talks that we have, but also the leadership from Betty for the choir. You know, there's a lot of people attend this church because of the choir, and not just the people that are singing. So that is pretty important. And of course, all of the other programs that occur from this church, such as food banks and everything else, and helping the community. So those are really critical, and whatever happens with our future, I think we have to take that whole leadership and with us and try to make it continue. If we broaden our thinking a little bit, we know we got a structural issue here. But let's look for a minute at the United Churches in this area. And every congregation is probably experiencing similar things to us, and it was made very clear in the original Faith Forward document that our attendance is declining. I don't think that's just Trinity. I think that's every United Church. And is it possible that we could encourage other churches? Is this the opportunity to get together and consolidate this, some of our worship, and still retain leadership and meaningful work in the community? I would definitely encourage that. If I look at even Trinity, and I've only been here since 1970, so I'm not the longest member here, but there always has been a reluctance to say, if somebody else wants to join us, come ahead. But we're not very enthusiastic about joining other churches or doing that. I really think we have to get over that attitude. This is 50 years later, and the demographics are dictating to us that we have, excuse me, that we have to do something different. And change, we're always reluctant to have change. But change can also be very positive. And I know in churches it happens very slow, but maybe we don't have that much time now. We have to do something and get on with it. Just one final comment from me that shows working together is the United Churches, I think, in this community has taken one small step forward in joining each other for what we've called Fifth Sundays. And that is most evident in the choir. And other people from other churches that wanted to sing have joined, mainly us, but it has been a wonderful experience. We get to slowly get to know other people, and they really aren't any different than us. You know, they're all facing the same challenges. So anyway, that probably wraps up everything I wanted to say. So anyway, any questions? I don't know whether you can ask any questions after that dissertation or not.
I just wondered if the committee has started any of these conversations with the other United Churches.
That's
Sorry,
probably more a me question. Is that right?
Sorry?
Is that more a me question?
Well,
Or a you question? Go ahead.
my recommendation is that we have to personally meet with other United Churches. And it doesn't have to be limited to United Churches. I think any church. We have to think outside the box here and say, if they're having difficulties, we're having difficulties, is there anything we can do together? So I would just encourage that whole dialogue to start as right away, actually.
Any other questions? Jerry also sat on the building committee, so sorry to put words in your mouth, but if you have specific questions about the building, the structure, those kind of repair things, Jerry would be a great person to ask. Thank you.
I wondered about our foundation. Is it compromised?
Okay. The structural engineer that we had working with us, a very practical fellow, and he checked pretty well everything. The only thing we didn't check is that tower. But he did check the foundation. He was quite happy with what he saw with the foundation. He doesn't think that was an issue. Our challenge is the horizontal beams that run over these large pillars here on both sides. That is the one critical issue that we have to deal with. The other is that the rafters on these the side areas here, they're all undersized. And of course now, with environmental changes and all the rest of the stuff going on, they're quite concerned that a large snowfall could collapse those sides. Now that might be a bit scary stuff, but anyway, it's lasted for quite a while so far. But
Thanks, Jerry. Any other questions, Heather?
I think we spent about $300,000 on that side. Am I?
over here,
Remember, we had the
Yeah.
issues, and we raised
yeah, that
about $300,000.
Yes.
Is that money still invested, or like was the repair good?
I'm not hearing that very well.
The question was, we've already spent $300,000 over here. Is
Yeah.
this repair sufficient for going forward?
What we have to do is take that entire ceiling and go right back to full length of the church. We have to do that on both sides. Yeah. No, I think it demonstrated to us that it can be fixed, but there's a lot more work. And the other thing that we all know will occur is that once we start working in here, part of the church would not be available for worship. So there'd be other accommodations that we would have to make.
Any other questions for Jerry?
Good.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.
And our final speaker for this morning is John Hafledson.
I know that this process is difficult. We're being called to confront harsh realities and address major change. I care deeply about this church family and want to see it thrive. So it's within that context that I outline my view on our building alternatives. Of the alternative presented, I favor the partnering option, as Amanda has titled it, the share there option, which will mean abandoning our beautiful old building and moving to another building, with our most likely partners being one or several of St. Andrews, Oman, and Emmanuel. I prefer the partnering option for the following reasons. It offers the potential of having more people for financial donations and thereby increasing our income. We've experienced deficits for the past 6 years, totaling $147,000, and our year-to-date deficit this year is running about $65,000. We simply cannot continue to incur deficits indefinitely. Partnering also offers the possibility of having more people to fill volunteer positions. We've lost a number of dedicated volunteers over the past few years, leaving the weight of volunteer work on the shoulders of an aging and diminished group. I've heard former members of Calendar United Church state that their church closed from a shortage of volunteers and energy rather than a shortage of money. Partnering would enable us to carry out the important mission of our church without the distraction of a major fundraising campaign. Can you imagine the amount of time and energy that would be required to raise $1 million? And it's unlikely that we would get a bank loan. That time and energy would be better directed towards reaching out and serving the wider community, nurturing spirituality in the people of all ages, and being a welcoming, inclusive community of faith. In making this choice, we would be setting priorities and doing what matters most. To quote a United Church document that Amanda shared recently, our church buildings and properties are tools to support the mission, not the mission itself. I also favor partnering because, in my view, there's a low probability of being successful in raising the amount of money required for repair work. How can we expect to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars when we've not been able to balance the budget in recent years? The fifth reason I prefer partnering is it offers the best stewardship of our resources. Spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to repair our crumbling building would not be wise stewardship. When after repairs, we would still be left with an old building that is substantially too large for our needs and could still require major expenditures to maintain old, outdated facilities. The sixth reason I favor partnering is it'll be an important step in ensuring the survival of the United Church community in the North Bay area. We simply have too many buildings, each without enough people, and consolidation is logical and practical. I recognize that giving up our beautiful old building will be painful for many, myself included. My heart goes out to the folks who have a long history at Trinity and hold many memories of experiences in the building. We can minimize the pain, uncertainty, and anxiety by making a decision sooner rather than later, and then moving on in the chosen direction. In other words, peeling the Band-Aid off the wound helps. I recognize also that the partnering option has not yet been defined. Who do we partner with? What building makes the most sense? What will the terms and conditions be? What artifacts or memorial items would we bring? I'm confident, however, that working with other church people we can find a partnering scenario that will benefit our church community and the wider church community in North Bay. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Any questions for John? Betty. Betty will need a microphone. Thanks, Heather. She's on her way.
Hi. The partnering I see, I can see financially it's a great idea, John. I agree with that. If we were to partner with another United Church, the one down the street is also old. Olmsted is very small, but Emmanuel to me would probably be the one. And if we're partnering with United, and a United Church, to me that would be one staff. If we partner with another denomination, I could see having services at 2 different times of the day or 2 different times of the weekend. That's just the way I see it. I don't know if anyone else sees it that way or not.
Well,
If we've got
I
that
can't
far
really
out.
speak to that, Betty. I think obviously there's a number of partnering options. And I think a lot of those issues that you talk about need to be addressed. And I can't, I understand the limitations, and I think there's going to be some painful trade-offs with the partnering option. But a lot of those issues, I think, would be the focus of a task force or a group of folks reaching out to partnering possibilities and defining a lot of those important things.
Okay. Yeah. We speak with Don and Sandy Haslam quite frequently, and they're part of a church in St. Catharines that has amalgamated. There are at least 3 congregations now that are part of what they call the Trillium congregation. So the 3 have, maybe even more, there could be 4, but 3 for sure. And so they basically have one staff because it's all United Church, but it's meant they still kept the United Church in the area. They've had many churches closed down there. And I think it's happening all over. But it is quite, to me, it's quite a different thing. And of course, I'm looking at it from a different perspective than some people maybe. That if we partner with another United Church, that's one thing. If we're to partner with a different congregation, a different denomination, that's really quite a different thing entirely. We would probably have 2 separate congregations, whereas if it's United, I would think it'd be one. That's the whole point. Am I right on that? Does that make sense?
That's the way I view it.
Yeah.
I view our most likely partnering folks as St. Andrews, Olmsted, and Emmanuel, and either one or several.
But St. Andrews is pretty old too. That was the old Presbyterian church. It's almost as old as we are. And they have lots of building issues, belfry and all kinds of stuff. So I don't think we want to go into another old building. That's what we're trying to deal with now. I don't know, just my idea. Okay.
I hear you.
Any other questions for John? Peggy has one at the back there, Heather.
Hi, John. So I wondered if we moved location, what considerations are being given to our community outreach in the downtown core? Like the food shelf, the infant food shelf.
It's a good question, Peggy. I know that the food shelf is an important outreach ministry here, for sure. And so, again, I think that outreach could be continued perhaps in a different way or combining with another food bank if we were to leave this building.
And that would be 2 places we would have to search for, correct?
Well, I think you'd be looking at, I don't know, to be honest with you. I mean, there's a lot of items to be addressed.
Right, okay, thank you.
It's not a simple process. But I think what we're being called to do here today, I think, is to choose a direction, and once we choose a direction, then some of these questions can be addressed. And I know that there's trade-offs to be made, and it's not simple, But we're being asked here today to choose or to vote for a particular option. And I do not pretend that we have all the answers on the partnering option. And that's why I stated that earlier. But I think a lot of these issues can be addressed, recognizing that there will be trade-offs.
I think Claudette has a question.
Yeah, this is not a question, just an observation. If we go ahead, for example, with a reno, we can still have a partner. We can still have partnership with other congregations because they're going through similar problem. So, and of course, we can find additional uses for a church. If it's in a better position or better condition, we can rent it out for other things.
I understand, Claudette.
Doing a reno does not rule out a partnership. This is what I'm saying. Okay, thank you.
The big challenge there is how do we raise $1 million? I think it's unlikely. I mean, Jerry talked about, you know, how many donors would it take at what amount? I mean, at 100 active donors for $1 million, that's $10,000 each. And I think it's unlikely or would be very challenging to get a bank loan when we're running deficits. And how are we going to prove or demonstrate that we can repay back a bank loan when we're running deficits? We've been budgeting for deficits the last 2 years. We've had success with our stewardship campaigns to where our offerings have shown pretty significant increases over the past several years. However, our expenses have increased on a more rapid rate. And it's been that way. I mean, it's gotten progressively worse over the last few years. As Natalia mentioned, we were a $78,000 deficit last year. We're running well over $60,000 this year, and we've had deficits since 2019.
Any other questions for John? Thanks, Rick.
This is essentially just an observation too, but to the idea of fundraising, even $1 million, right? If we somehow, even partnering with another organization, we're able to start to have a surplus year over year of $100,000, it would take us 10 years to save $1 million, in which time the $1 million we were saving for would probably inflate another couple $100,000. And the costs of just existing and paying bills would also inflate and start to cut into that $100,000. And it may be that chasing $1 million of fundraising takes a lot longer than 10 or 15 years, in which case we might never reach it before we have to face leaving this church anyways.
Thanks, Rick. And yeah, another one, Heather.
Just a comment, really. Somehow we raised $300,000 in not that much time, and maybe it was just pure luck or whatever. Just a comment. And another question, I don't know who this would be to, maybe Jerry. Can we do a pay-as-you-go? Like we do one repair, pay for it, then move on and do another? Just, I don't know.
I think if the decision is to repair this building, once you start, you have to continue on. I think that would be a nightmare for a contractor or even to organize it. Oh, well, we only want to fix that side this year or something. I think it would be, that could be a disaster, actually.
Okay.
As far as that money that was raised, Heather, for the roof rebuild several years ago, I think we first of all, it was a tremendous fundraising campaign. I mean, folks were really generous, but we also tapped into our investment fund, and that ultimately we did pay back that. But this would be a substantially higher cost. You know, $1 million, round number. It's just a substantial amount of money.
Are there any final questions for John in particular before we go to general comments? Thanks, Ruth.
I'm just wondering, is there a timeline for when you have to start the repairs? Like, can we do nothing for a length of time and then have a longer planning period to partner, for example, down the road?
I did talk to the structural engineer when we were getting near the end and said, you know, we can't do this work next week. How much time do we have? And his response was that, well, you shouldn't wait too long, but he said, oh, probably a couple of years, you're okay. So that's not a lot of time.
Thanks, Jerry. Okay, so we'll open the floor for a few minutes. If you do have some general comments or questions for other people, there are some great brains in this room, and I do not purport to carry all of them, although there's a good amount up there too. But let's tap into the experts that really are in the room. So if you have a question, please ask it. If you have a response, then please answer the question. That would be fantastic. Thanks. Alex has a question here.
All right, hello. So a bit of a question with all the 5 options. Once the users choose where they want to put their choice, it's weighted. It's not rigid from that point forward. And then, you know, my next comment would be kind of more in line with what you were saying, is combining with the 2. So as we're understanding, there are more congregations that are going through this. And perhaps once Trinity makes the decision to take a step forward, we may then see other individuals or congregations say, you know what, we were experiencing the same thing, and in that you've chosen repair or renovations or whichever, you know, it may then open conversation for us to have with those congregations. And so just in that it's not rigid once you make the decision, and then also this is a continuing process, I think.
Well, I think as we've heard today, there are lots of unknowns no matter which route we choose. I think the Faith Forward 2.0 committee and the board are just hoping to narrow down the avenues that we need to further investigate to be able to bring more concrete options to you. So I don't even think that this is going to be a deciding vote, to be honest with you. In my best hopes, I think we're trying to narrow it down to maybe 1 or 2 that we're going to get more details about, and then bring it back to the congregation for A, further discussion, and B, eventually a formal vote at a congregational meeting. I'd also just like to add further to the partnering option, because of our financial situation, and again, this is probably my opinion more so than speaking for anybody in particular or any group in particular, I don't think that a way forward is possible financially for us without a partner, no matter what choice we make. So even if we decide to repair, John spoke very frankly about our financial situation, we are going to need to explore a partner of some sort, whether that's a rental, somebody who's going to rent our building, or another church who's going to share here instead of there. I think that we are eyes wide open, taking a big step towards finding a partner. We just need to know what kind of a partner we're looking for, no matter what the leanings are in this this particular vote. There's a question over here.
Just want to make sure that I understand And what I understand is we're picking a direction for us to pursue. We're not taking definite actions of the options of the price tags. We're just picking a direction for us to pursue. That's the purpose of our voting.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, a direction for the Faith Forward Committee. I expect the process is going to look like the Faith Forward Committee doing a little bit more exploration in one or two avenues, and then perhaps bringing some advice to the board, and then the board bringing that to the congregation. Whether there's a decision or not, I don't think can happen without, number one, the board having put forth a motion to have a congregational meeting, and then B, the congregation actually voting to move forward in one direction specifically.
I'm thinking, Amanda, it might just be helpful then to review people what the process looks like, that Heather and I and perhaps Peggy are back at these tables. You can sign your name and take your 5 ballots, and you can distribute them however you want. I mean, it would be kind of foolish to put one ballot into each of 5 boxes, because effectively that negates your vote. But you can put weight in sort of maybe 2 places that you think are the best options, or if you think that there's only one option, then you can put them all there. You don't need to vote today. You could vote, I think, effectively if you want to do it on a Sunday morning. Otherwise, it would have to be on the first Sunday of Advent, which is November the 30th, I'm pretty sure. Just so that people will know that on your way to get your hot dog, you can get your ballots, you can sign for your ballots and vote right now. There is a sample box behind Amanda that will need to be at the table at the back there, because then we have all 5 boxes there. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Alex, another comment? One per family? No, 1 per person. Yeah. And Lisa and I we'll discuss what it looks like for children to vote. We will be providing children an opportunity to vote if parents feel that they are aware of the issues and informed. We would like them to vote in an informed way. So I'll call the meeting to an end. If you'd like to stick around and ask questions, answer questions, I'll be here for a few minutes. I'm sure there'll be, again, more brains than mine here for a few minutes. But thank you so much for your participation today. I really appreciate it.